everybody, and welcome to Literature with Lydia, getting Liddy with a lid. Today on this episode we are going to be talking about the book Different, which is a book about marketing and how different brands fill different niches and how this applies not only to business but also to being a human being. Sometimes your difference is what makes you special. I know that sounds so cheesy, but it's so true. And your differences is also where your talent lies and where your hardest hitting things lie. And in the book, it's this person is a marketing professor, and they talk a lot about different companies and how they approach marketing their product and developing their product. And they talk about how in this day and age there's a lot of pressure on companies to be good at everything, but how sometimes that can make a very gray market that is undifferentiated. And something that I think about is how this is like speciation? I think that's what it's called, but when a species splits into two and niches down because this type of beak serves this purpose and this type of beak serves this purpose. There are certain people who are looking for certain things in the market, and they will take that certain thing as the most important thing that they're looking for. They would rather you be like a beautiful sports car than be environmentally friendly, for example. And Mini Cooper, for example, she talks about how Mini Cooper is a great example of how there was a push for large vehicles and then they just decided to do something different regardless of the fact that that wasn't what the mainstream wanted, and they found a market for it because there were a few people who preferred things that way. So yeah, that's basically what the book is about. And then it's just on a philosophical level about making yourself less homogenous, because only by appreciating where you're different and how you're different can you become the fullest extent to the fabulous that you are, because it's within your differences and it's even within your weaknesses, the things that you neglect because you're focusing on your strengths. It's in that you have your value. So let's get into my reflection points. Oh, it's only 4 pages of notes. Oh my god, great, a short little review. Oh my gosh, I'm like 4 pages. That's great. Okay, so the author talks about how taking a group vote of things just leads to making more of a less special thing. And what I mean by this is it's like if you take 10 cars and one of them's good at going really fast, one of them's good at being electric, one of them is good at being great for a family, like family shape and size. One of them is good gas mileage. One of them is a hippy-dippy vehicle that appeals to going to the beach. One of them has 4-wheel drive. One of them, you know what I'm saying? They all have different niches that they fill. When people ask, well, like when you ask the market what they want to be better about each car, the feedback that comes back is, if it's a Jeep, then they're like, oh, I would love for there to be more space in the back seat so that my kids have room. My parents got rid of a Jeep when I was a kid. I really don't like that because I really like Jeeps. But for a third child, there just wasn't enough room. So it's a very personal example. But then also when the marketing team gets that feedback, when they change the Jeep is no longer a Jeep. The Jeep no longer does what the Jeep does, which is to be a little box car that goes off-road. So it loses its niche by trying to be better for the consumer. And this kind of reminds me of why I have my comments off, because as much as I love getting positive feedback and people being like, yes, this fills the niche, the void that I am looking to be filled, when I hear that, I know I'm doing the right thing. But when I hear feedback that wants to make me into something I'm not, more like other creators that they see, I'm like, okay, don't love the feeling in me that comes from that, because suddenly where I thought I was being myself and expressing myself in my own way, and where I was filling a certain niche because of the way that I was expressing myself that nobody else is in, I thought I was doing that, but this feedback is making me feel like less than because I'm not doing it a standard way or a way that another creator would do it. And so sometimes I have my comments off just to protect the way that I express myself. And in the same way, Jeeps can't always listen to all the feedback that people are giving, because while it would be great if they had this, this, and this, and this, then it would not be a Jeep. And a Jeep is a concept that came out of nowhere, basically. Someone was like, oh my god, wait, wouldn't it be cool if we had something that did this? And then they made it, and then people liked it because it was cool. And in that same way, sometimes I'll lay down and I have my best ideas, and it's not because I'm scrolling on TikTok and I'm inspired by someone's post. It's because I don't want to make something exactly like what they did. Sometimes I do that. But then sometimes I'm laying down and it's spontaneous and it comes from my soul. And that's really cool because there's nothing else like it, because it came from inside of me, which means it was created by me, by my creative forces. And so it reflects who I am as a person pretty directly. And I think that that is pretty cool concept. Just spontaneous creation. Concept before creation. Sometimes I see an outfit in my brain and then I go create it in that same way. I like that a lot. Just not inspired by anything except for whatever's inside of me. That is fun. Yeah. Okay, so on the same note, she describes that there is a classroom, the class project that her students work on, and when she gives feedback, she'll say, oh, this is fantastic. Would never have thought of that like that, but you're lacking about this and this. And oh, this is great, but you're lacking on this and this. And when they come back on the second project, she feels like there's lackluster in their work because they focused on becoming more like the competition, more like the rubric, rather than expressing themselves the way that feels natural for them to express themselves. And this is almost like if you were to want someone to have the same fingerprint. Nobody's gonna have the same fingerprint, and there's a reason for that. Well, I don't really know the reason, but I actually really don't know the reason, but I'm sure there is one. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm sure there is one. It's a pretty crazy fact. I actually could think about that all day if I let myself. Like, what the fuck? I remember when someone told me when I was a kid, snowflakes, there's not a single one that's the same, and I was like, it's a lie. It is not true. It is a lie. That is a lie. There have been 2 snowflakes that are the same. There must have been, because there are so many. Like, what if they really are all different? Stop. Okay, I could think about this all day. It gives me such a weird feeling. It gives me such a weird feeling. Anyway, we really have to start thinking about something else. This is like, I could actually think about this all day. So she stopped giving in this classroom the feedback to the kids that compared them to each other and had a standard rubric, so that she could see who they are and then give them feedback individually. And I do believe, I've mentioned this before on this channel, that it is right to give kids individual feedback. It is right to not have a standard rubric for kids because there is no standard kid. We're all different. That's just what I believe is the humane way to treat children. Okay, so it's kind of like if you take a liquid, a coffee and a milk, and you have a comparison side by side, they're different. They do different things. They serve different purposes. But then if you open the floodgate and they mix all together, when you compare them, it's like stirring 2 liquids together. They become one thing. And it's you can't use milky coffee for the same things you can use coffee for, and you can't use milk for the same things you can use milky coffee for. So these are components, and people, when they let themselves be potently who they are, they become a component. They become part of what could be an awesome recipe made from many different components, which is life. When you look outside and there's all different types of cars, awesome recipe. Awesome recipe for lots of interesting stuff to happen. But yeah, if you compare, then there's always gonna be they're just gonna become homogenous. That's why comparison is the thief of joy, because joy is to be yourself, and comparison is the homogenization of self. This is why I always think it's weird when there's a niche group of content creators that are all similar, and I kind of do steer away from that, because I don't ever, people can say you remind me of blank blank blank, but I don't ever want to be particularly groupable with other people, because I don't believe I naturally am super groupable with other people. And that's the only problem that I found with having a friend group, is you become more like people who you wouldn't group, maybe it would be fine. But I am looking for friends in LA. So hit me up if you are also looking for friends in LA and you are not toxic and you will not compare me to your other friends and say, why aren't you more like blank? Because I will tell you, it is because I am not blank. Oh yeah, so on that note, like jealousy is a emotion that I used to feel a lot, and I think it was because I felt that I could not be as good as other people, and it is true. I cannot, but I can also be better than other people, and they can be better than me. And I've just like noticed like it's like comparing apples to oranges. Like you can be like they're both fruit, they're both alive, and then they're dead. We digest them, but you use them for different things. They're for different purposes. It's variety. Variety is the spice of life. Without variety, we'd be bored as heck. So it's cool that people are different, you know? Oh, something that the author said at the very beginning was that although this is her writing a book, I think it's a her. I honestly don't know. Yeah, it is. Although it's her writing this book, it's more important what you get from the book than whatever the book says itself. She says like when we read books, we like go through a transformation, and that's why it's important to read books. It's to be exposed to ways of thinking. And so she said, don't put too much pressure on me to be like, this is not like necessarily a scientific study. This is my experience with like being different and marketing, like being different when you're marketing. This is what I've observed, and this is also mixed in with my personal experiences and beliefs. And then she said like the reason that I'm writing this book is because it's important to think about concepts, but more important than memorizing this book or fully comprehending what I mean by it is noticing how you feel and how you're responding to being exposed to these concepts. And I thought that was a very interesting thing that she put in the introduction. And this is like kind of what I like about reading, is that it's like I can learn about perspectives from the comfort of my couch and like choose to inform my life differently, like to make different choices in my life because I've been exposed to a new way of thinking. But it's a fully consensual process of me exposing myself to like ideas and perspectives and then taking in what I think feels right for me based off of how I respond to it. I love it, and I love that about like being in relationships too. It is fully about like comparing experiences and approaches and like learning from each other and like taking in what they do into you and doing it in your own way. That's just such a beautiful thing about life. So like a metaphor that I think about for this is like you're a neighboring landscape, but you don't have to have the same landscape. You're gonna find people whose approaches and perspectives in life are more similar to yours, and then you're gonna find people whose approaches to life are less similar than yours. And it's like a desert and a tropical rainforest. Neither one are wrong, they both just exist and they're doing their own thing. But were you to compare them and be like, oh, y'all should be more like each other, then it would destroy both of them, you know? She mentioned this simulation that someone created where it was like they wanted to know how birds choose to move in a flock, and they said they programmed it with 3 rules, which was keep up with the person next, or the bird next to you, move in average direction of all the birds that are around you, like move in the average direction of every bird on every side of you, and also hold space in between you and the birds. Those were the 3 rules that they programmed the birds with, and they started to fly like a normal flock of birds in this computer simulation. And I just think that that is super interesting and fascinating, because like those 3 simple rules are how you keep up with the crowd. And that's it. Like, if you want to be a bird in a flock, that's all you have to do. It reminds me of high school, honestly. There was so much, like, everybody reading each other, and, like, these are very formative years, so there's a lot of being, like, influenced by each other, but it's so stressful to always have to be, like, calculating, like, what's the average choice that people are making here? And, like, make sure that you're not so similar that y'all are exactly the same, because that would be a little suspicious. And also, keep up with the crowd, don't fall behind, because that would be dangerous, and you would get left behind. It was literally, like, that exactly, those rules exactly. And there was like visible disruption of the flow if that was not what you were doing. One of my favorite things about the past like 2 or 3 years is that I've spent the majority of my time alone, and I've had like brief interactions with people, usually one-on-one, like a few parties here and there, but like most of my life is alone these days, which is really fun because I've got to like calm myself uninterrupted and unimpacted by other people's actions and my self-comparison of me to them. I am like a known codependent and I'm still working on that. They say that codependents are like alcoholics, like you never really fully get better, and it's like best to be practicing being actively not a codependent because it is an addiction. But I also do find some like fun in matching someone else's speed and like moving with them for a while. I don't always mind a good old-fashioned like mirror sesh where I can like match their vibe and then understand them better because of it. I do love that. Just like co-regulating with someone, but not co-inhabiting. I do not want to share my apartment with anybody. It's my apartment. It's mine. It's mine. Oh, so she talks about how when people get ice cream more often than like once a week, they stop liking it as much, which makes total sense. It's like if something's special, then you don't want it every single day. And sometimes I think that that's the fun thing about being in relationships is you see them like once a week. You're like, I see you once a week and like it's a great time and I'm glad that I see you once a week. Amazing. It does, it feels good every time. And especially if you have like multiple casual relationships, then it's like I see you once a week and then I see you once a week and then I see you once a week and then I want to see the other person because I started to miss them. And then I see them and then I see, it's like, it's so nourishing. It's so nourishing. It feels like this. It feels like fresh air. It feels so good. Okay, so they were talking about how brand loyalty is harder and harder to come by these days. And I was thinking about how, like, these days, if you really want someone to be loyal to a brand, then there has to really be someone who you like behind the brand. And that's why I think that content marketing is so interesting, because it's like you're attached not only to the product because it's a good product, hopefully, but you're also attached to the concept of this person and like everything that you believe it means to be that person, everything that only that one person can fulfill, the emotional need that that one person fulfills in your life. And therefore the products that they make go along with that. And I think that that is like a new way of fostering brand loyalty that is almost spiritual in nature, because it has to do with like they're fulfilling an emotional need in you and then they're also fulfilling a physical need in you and they don't even know you too. I think like there's this concept of transference, which is like when someone's energy combines with yours or like transfers to you. It's like temperature. Like if someone's really cold and you're really hot, then it's like when y'all get together, there's a lot of heat transference that happens. There's a lot of reactivity. And I think that like this can happen with celebrities who make brands as well. Like you feel like energetically more put together when you view this celebrity as put together and then you're using their stuff. There's something that is a little magic about it, to be honest. And I know because like I got caught up in the Shane Dawson, Jeffree Star extreme craze that happened around the series that they made. And there was something so magic about that series. And I think it was the transference of energy between Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson that you got to watch, where it's like Jeffree Star is a show person and is glamorous and Shane Dawson is like a layman's person but knows how to entertain and how to edit well and create a story. And they've both been practicing their own individual crafts for so long that there was something so beautiful about seeing them come together and make something that neither one of them could have done alone. And they were both like so talented in similar but very different ways as well, like creating an audience and like giving an audience what they need. It was like a Venn diagram. It was a really awesome thing to watch, to be honest. I totally understand why it was so hype. And yeah, like the products that came out of that collaboration were so special because, and the feeling that you got with them was so special because there was something super special about the series. And those products, I don't have my Jeffree Star palette anymore. I don't think I actually got any product from that collab at all, actually. But like I do think about like that green color. Like if I was gonna get anything, I would get like that one green color potentially, but I probably will not because of interesting things that have come out about both of those since then. But that's the thing, is it's almost like you experience a trauma bond with them because you're experiencing how personable they can be. You're charmed. It really is like a parasocial relationship. Oh yeah, but She was saying brand loyalty is hard to come by, but when I find something I like, for example, Goodwill, it hits a spot in the market that no, and Salvation Army as well, that no other place does. I guess actually they're competitors. Okay, but like Moleskine, but then there's Exceed and Papermates. Yeah, I guess I don't have much brand loyalty actually. I really don't have brand loyalty at all. I will say my Canon camera is pretty freaking awesome. It's been with me since like all 10 years now. It's been with me for 10 years now. It is so quality and so like easy to use. So I guess I have brand loyalty there. And then Apple as well, because nobody makes a phone like Apple. They just don't. And if they did, I would consider switching to them. But Apple really centers user friendliness and simplicity, and I need those things. I am a user, a simple user. So yeah, like even Hydro Flask, I thought I was gonna be loyal to them for forever. But at the end of the day, like in the market, this nib, that's a Camelback nib. And like Camelbacks, they're always gonna have this little nipple. I need the nipple. It is very comforting to me, and it gets me to drink more water. Okay, so she says when you are like looking to break away from the crowd and do something that kind of like disrupts the market and like introduces a new concept into a market, it's best to just go against what the market is already offering and find like a niche thing that is not being supplied yet. And something that I think in my own life is like this, that makes me loyal to this brand, is Verizon actually offers a service called Visible, and they do a $25 per month unlimited phone service plan. This includes hotspot, this includes everything, and I switched from Sprint and didn't even have to like go into a store. I did it online. And to me, that was like a miracle, because I always thought that phone plans had to be complicated and expensive. And the only catch with this is that they deprioritize your service. They put other people's phone speeds higher than yours, and if there's like a lot of demand, then people who paid for more expensive plans get priority. But it's honestly okay. It really hasn't been much of a problem. So I'm good with it. And it's just like the simplicity of not ever having to deal with like an in-person store. The simplicity of me knowing every single month it's gonna be $25 on repeat. Love it. It's perfect. And it's definitely like disruptive to the market, because not many people are offering that, honestly. Okay, so a strange approach that some businesses will take is that they'll remove certain benefits that other ones offer. Like, they will never try to be the cheapest airline, but they will give you 2 bags free. So they'll remove a benefit, but then they'll make the added benefits so different and so extra that it's like just nobody else is doing it, that they've created their own like genre of airline. They've created their own like non-competitive niche for people who want flexible cancellation and who want lots of baggage. They're always gonna go with Southwest because they don't have to pay, and who are limited on money though too. They're always gonna go to Southwest because they don't have to pay for the extra baggage. Like, they make up for the lack of cheapness with certainty that you can cancel and with certainty that you will not be paying for extra baggage. But they did that by going against what the market would say. The market would say, like, stick pretty close to what other airlines are doing, but they said, no, we need to make our own niche to be competitive. I think it's very interesting, very fascinating, very smart, Southwest. I would maybe like to do something similar to that. I don't know what, but I do have to think about it because it is a very fascinating concept. Okay, so something she talked about was hostile brands, and I think it's such a funny concept. It's like you're almost like rage baiting to get like interactions, or like to get someone to remember your brand. And an example of this is Gossip Girl would use its critics' reviews on movie or on show advertisements, and it's like rage bait, but it's also like they're leaning into the fact that they're not a good influence. And it's very like going against being what every other show was at the time, trying to be like family friendly to make its own niche. And I would say like Euphoria has probably benefited from similar things. It did not try to be like other shows. It very much as its own thing. It very much leaned into being like difficult to watch in terms of like the themes of the story and like the outcomes of the story as well. It was pretty harsh and hard to watch and like very real world, like just lots of really difficult things to watch. And yeah, had they tried to like tone itself down, then it wouldn't be Euphoria. The reason it's Euphoria is because it's so different. It's not like anything else that's been made. It's really like Mini Cooper did this too, where it was like people were asking for a bigger vehicle and then they were hating on the Mini Cooper for being small, and they like leaned into the idea of like, we are small, we are gonna continue to be small, and there are benefits in that, and we're not gonna lie about the fact that that is the truth of our brand. And they really leaned into it, and it worked for them. Clearly it's worked for them. And I think that like this is actually the most relaxing approach to being a person on the internet as well, is like you can come, you can see, you can get what you get, and woohoo! Like, we all benefit from that. Like, me being able to just be, and like me being able to lean into the things that people wouldn't usually lean into, hopefully creates my own niche. You know what I'm saying? And I noticed that Nicki Minaj does this too. Like, people on TV shows will be like interviewing her will be like, oh, aren't you worried about like being family friendly for kids? And she's basically like, your kids are not my problem. Like, if your kids are watching me, it's like, I don't have kids. It's you who should be keeping your kids away from me. Like, I'm on TV. I'm not in front of your kids. I don't have kids. She just like leans into the fact that like that's who she is, and I really appreciate that about her. And this is why when she did get competitive with, I don't really know all the drama about her and Cardi B, but there was some like drama between them, and it was like, she was basically, I really don't know the details, but I think what was happening was she was like feeling very threatened by Cardi B and like lashing out because of it. But what's weird is like, when I think about artists, I don't ever think about like there's a best one. I think about there's a best one that makes me feel this one feeling that no one else can, but I'm not always in the mood for that one feeling anyway. So it's great that there's many artists who are good at many things. Crystal Castles can't be Taylor Swift, and I like them both, you know? And like, were Crystal Castles to try to be more like Taylor Swift, that would be really frustrating. It would be deeply frustrating to me, because that would be the loss of Crystal Castles, you know? And same with like, like I was at a show, who was I watching? 100 Gex, and who are those people? The three girls. Phoebe Bridgers is in the, who are they? Something boy. Man, I can't believe I can't remember that. That's actually so silly of me. Something boy. Who are they? Who are they? Strong enough to be your man. Man, I don't know. Anyway, those ones. They are so different, and when I went to their concert, when 100 Gex came on, it was like, it was not 100 Gex crowd. I don't know why they were performing for them. Like, people did not receive it super well, except for like a few people at the very front, and I received it super well because I love them both, but for very different reasons. Like, I wouldn't expect them to be at the same concert. And this reminds me, like, Prince said one time he was opening for someone and people were booing him, and he vowed after that he would never open for anyone else and he would do his own thing. And he did do his own thing. He became his own person, and it's good because when you do have your own shows, people are there for you and you alone, you know? That is pretty cool. Is that you know for a fact when you're going into that show that this person's gonna fill the niche that you're coming to get filled. And isn't that a good thing? Oh, so something that this author said at the very end was that like being different in a meaningful way to you is like one of the most powerful things that you can do as a human being. Being different in a way that anyone could be different is less powerful. So it's important to know yourself and to know like what your strengths are, and then become more that. Focus on becoming even more that. Like, you excel in this one way or these 4 ways that like make a very interesting pattern in you, and to become different in a way that you actually believe in and that comes to you naturally because of who you are at the core of you, that means something. If someone asks you, just be different, the first thing that comes into your mind is probably not your natural strengths. It's probably like, what do different people do? Like, what's different? But it's like, you don't need to think about what different people do. You just need to be different in the way that you already are, because that's what's meaningful. And that's what's also like gonna come to you the easiest and the most naturally, and it's probably gonna enhance your life as well. I just want to say, like, I feel pretty relieved about this book because it just like kind of feels like it gives me permission as a human being to continue to be who I am and like accentuate the parts of me that are different. And yeah, I do feel like I needed external permission to do that. And I also needed like evidence that there's probably a place in the market for my strengths and that my weaknesses, it's okay that I have them and I just need to learn how to accommodate them. And that is something that we kind of all have to do in life, so I'm not even alone on that. I'm different, but I'm kind of the same. So yeah, I hope that you have enjoyed this reflection, and I also hope that you as a individual like have an idea of what it is that you do best and that you don't feel the desire to become more like anybody else. It is good. Actually, I don't believe that, come to think of it. I think it's good to be inspired by people. I think it's like awesome to be inspired by people because it allows you as a person to get to know yourself using like different tools and like a different framework. But I think what's good about being inspired by other people is that you see the way that they can do what they do, and then when you try to do it, you're gonna see the way that you do what you were trying to make yourself do like them, which is like a tool for being able to suss out what you do different than them, and like where they may be strong, you may be weak, and it's an opportunity to see where they may be weak, you are also strong, and then to differentiate even more because you tried what they were doing and you found out that you were good in this one way that they actually aren't, with much love to them, because thanks for inspiring me. But like then it's like, oh, I have an idea of how I can do this but do it in a little bit of a different way to put a spin on it. And that's kind of like Haley Pham makes reviews or like reflections for books, but mostly she makes like what I read this month and like read with me vlogs. And I realized like I think what I like the best about her videos and feel the most drawn to is when she starts to talk about like her personal experience reading books. And that's when I came up with the idea of this. Like, I read, and so let me tell you what my personal experience with this book is. And if you do decide to read this book, then it would be awesome to hear what yours is too, and you should definitely tag me if you like make a video talking about your book reflections, because that would be fun to me. But also, if you don't want to read the book, that's totally fine. I think I gave you a pretty great idea of what it's about. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you want, like if you liked, and see you in the next one.